An interesting consequence of the way environments work is that a function can refer to its own name within its body. Let's look at a couple of examples. If I write a function, PrintAll, that takes some argument and prints it, I can have it return PrintAll. This isn't surprising, actually. When you define this function, all that happens is that the body is squirreled away waiting for a call. By the time it's called, the name PrintAll already exists and is already bound to a function. So if I print all1, it will print 1, and then this expression will evaluate to the PrintAll function, which I could call again. And that expression will evaluate to the PrintAll function, so I could call it again. Let's see what happens. PrintAll is defined. By the time I call PrintAll, notice that PrintAll is already bound in the global frame. I call PrintAll on the first argument 1. 1 gets printed out. In this environment diagram, we also show the print output. And then the function PrintAll is returned. Same function, we looked it up by name, and we returned it. Returning it means that it's the value of PrintAll1. So that's exactly the function that gets called on the argument 3. When I call PrintAll on 3, 3 gets printed. PrintAll is returned. Now I'm going to call that on 5. 5 gets printed. PrintAll gets returned. And execution is finished. So even though this refers to itself, since it doesn't call itself, it's not going to run forever. It's up to this call expression to figure out exactly how many times PrintAll gets called, and we see the output are the arguments of the separate calls. Here's a slightly more involved example. Okay, I'm going to write a function that sums all of the arguments so far. So we'll call it PrintSums instead. And it's not going to return PrintAll because PrintAll doesn't exist anymore. It will return a function. It's going to return a function that I define within the body of PrintSums called nextSum, which takes an argument y and immediately calls PrintSums on x plus y. That's exactly where the summing is happening. So x is the sum so far, y is the next number, and PrintSums just returns nextSum. Let's see how it works. First, PrintSums is defined and then called on the number 1. The sum so far is 1, and so that's exactly what gets printed out. Next, we define a new function and return it. We return it as the value of this call expression, so we'll call it on the number 3. So nextSum has just been called on the number 3. 3 is not a sum, it's just the argument here. Where we get a sum is that we're going to add x, which is here in the current environment, in the parent frame of f2, to y, and get 4. Now what happens to that 4 is it gets passed into another call to PrintSums. So there's another call to PrintSums. Here the argument is 4, which is the sum of 1 and 3. And what does PrintSums do? Well, it just prints out the sum that it receives, and then defines a new function. That new function gets returned. And where does it get returned to? Oh, it's the value of PrintSums 1, 3. Notice that the function we're returning, which has parent f3, knows the sum so far of 4. And so if it wants to compute the sum of the whole thing, 1 plus 3 plus 5, it needs that 4 along with the 5 that I'm about to pass in. So I've just called nextSum for the second time. Notice that now I'm passing in 5. The parent is f3, which contains 4, which means I can compute the total sum 9. And what do I do with it? Well, I compute it here, 4 plus 5. I pass it into a third call to PrintSums, and PrintSums prints out 9, which is the sum of 1 and 3 and 5. So by having PrintSums define an inner function, and this inner function returning a call to PrintSums, I'm able to use the arguments here to memorize values that get computed along the way. Those values are passed in as arguments. They appear inside the frame, which is the parent frame of the local frame for nextSum. Next sum does the summing in this case, and PrintSums just prints out whatever it gets. So here's the same picture, and it's important to notice what goes where. When you actually have the call expression PrintSums 1, 3, 5, the first call is to PrintSums, but the other two are to the function that PrintSums returns, which is the next sum function. So the next sum function just tells Python what to do next in the next call. The next call first gets 3, the call after that gets 5. So we see that in the PrintSum frames, we see sums 1, 4, and 9. In the next sum frames, we just see the individual arguments that get passed in directly, which are 3 and 5.